and welcome to another deep dive. You know the drill. You send us the thought-provoking excerpts and we unpack them together.
That's right.
This time around, we're taking a deep dive into Sadhguru's Karma, a yogi's guide to crafting your destiny.
Oh, this will be good.
It's gonna be fascinating, I think. I mean, karma, it's one of those topics that can feel kind of heavy, you know?
Yeah.
But trust me, we're gonna keep it insightful and engaging as always.
It's definitely a concept that people talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there are a lot of misconceptions floating around about what karma actually is.
Right. Like, how many times have you heard that saying, what goes around comes around?
Too many times. It's like people think karma is about cosmic revenge.
Exactly. Like, there's some divine accountant up there, you know, keeping score of all our good deeds and bad deeds.
Right, like a giant spreadsheet or something.
Yeah, a giant spreadsheet. But that's not really what Sadhguru is getting at in the book, is it?
Not at all. In fact, he reframes karma as a force of creation. He emphasizes that we are the architects of our own lives.
I like that.
And that everything we experience, it's shaped by our past actions.
Okay, so that's where this whole software analogy comes in, right? I love this analogy.
Yeah.
He compares karma to the code that's running our lives, like the code we've written through all our thoughts and actions.
Exactly. It's the software we've unknowingly written for ourselves through
Yeah.
all of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. And you know what? He actually uses this hilarious story about the Pope to kind of illustrate this.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about this.
Imagine the Pope is behind the wheel
Okay.
of a stretch limousine.
Okay.
That's how out of touch most of us are with the forces that are actually shaping our lives.
Okay, that is both a funny image and also slightly terrifying.
Right.
So we're kind of like passengers in the back seat thinking we're in control, but actually it's our unconscious patterns. You know, they're the ones doing the driving.
Exactly. We're not truly free if
Yeah.
we're just running on autopilot.
That makes sense.
And that's why it's so important to understand how karma actually works. You know, it gives us the keys
Yeah.
to becoming conscious creators.
Right. Okay, I'm with you. So how do we even start to become more aware of this code that we've written? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, thankfully, Sadhguru breaks it down for us. He says there are three main levels where this karma operates: the body, the mind, and the energy.
Okay, so it's not just about our physical actions then.
No, it's not just about the physical actions. It's
Yeah.
also about the thoughts that we harbor
Okay.
and the energy that we put out into the world.
Wait, so even our thoughts create karma?
Absolutely.
Right.
Think about it. Every action starts with a thought, right?
Yeah.
That thought then creates an imprint on our energy, which then manifests in our words and actions.
Oh, wow.
It's like a ripple effect.
Okay, so it's way more subtle than just tallying up the good deeds versus the bad deeds.
Exactly.
It's really about
yeah.
how we think and how we feel.
Exactly. You know, this actually makes me wonder, have you ever noticed any recurring patterns in your own life?
Oh, all the time.
Like maybe you attract the same kind of partner over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you find yourself in similar types of conflicts, you know, at work or in your relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be kind of eerie when you start to see those patterns play out.
It is. It's like there's something deeper going on, like a force that's shaping our experiences beyond our conscious control.
Right. So this leads us to this fascinating but also kind of strange concept of vasana. Sadhguru describes it as like a smell
Yes.
that's created by our karmic imprints.
It is a really powerful metaphor.
It is.
He says, just like a flower's fragrance attracts certain insects, our vasana attracts certain types of experiences and people into our lives.
So wait, are you saying that we're basically walking around emitting this karmic perfume?
In a way, yes.
Wow.
And that's why, you know, two people can have completely different reactions to the same situation.
That's true.
Because their individual vasas
Yeah.
are drawing out different aspects of that experience.
Okay.
And Sadhguru illustrates this perfectly with a story from his own life. A rather startling one, actually.
Okay, I think I know which one you're talking about. The cobra story?
That's the one. So as a teenager, he was strangely drawn to cobras. Even kept one as a pet.
Yeah, his parents were terrified.
Exactly. Same cobra, two completely different reactions.
Right.
His parents' vasana was one of fear and aversion, while his was one of attraction and kinship.
Wow.
And it's such a powerful illustration of how our karmic makeup can really influence our perceptions and experiences.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, what if the experiences that we're constantly attracting are just a reflection of this, you know, smell that we're putting out there?
Yeah.
And that kind of begs the question, what vasana am I carrying around? Is it attracting what I actually want in life?
That is a very insightful question to ask. And that's where this concept of conscious action really comes in. Because the more aware we become of our own vasana, the more we can actually start to shift it. But that brings us to another really key point. It's not just about our actions themselves.
Okay.
It's also about the intention behind them.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this intention piece.
Okay. So Sadhguru emphasizes that the intention behind an action can actually create even more karma than the action itself.
Yeah.
He uses this thought-provoking story about two friends. One friend is attending a spiritual discourse.
Okay.
The other is visiting a prostitute.
Whoa, okay, that's quite a contrast. Where is he going with this?
So at first glance, it might seem like the friend of the spiritual discourse is on a more righteous path.
Yeah, I could see that.
Right. But what Sadhguru point out is that this friend is actually consumed with envy and judgment. His mind is far from peaceful or enlightened. Meanwhile, the other friend, despite engaging in an act that's typically seen as sinful, might actually be experiencing a moment of genuine connection, maybe even personal growth.
Okay, so even though the outward actions are completely different,
Yeah,
the internal state, the intention, can totally flip the script in terms of the karmic impact.
exactly.
Got it.
And to really drive this point home, he actually gives a series of scenarios involving a knife.
Like a weapon.
Yes, a knife as a weapon. And in one scenario, it's an accidental death.
Okay.
In another, it's a crime of passion.
Okay.
And in another, it's a premeditated murder.
So the physical act is the same. A person is killed with a knife,
Yes.
but the intention behind it dramatically changes the karmic weight.
Exactly. That's precisely the point he's making.
Yeah.
He's highlighting that it's not just about what we do,
Yeah.
but the energy and the motivation
Right.
behind every single thought, word, and action. And this leads us to the idea of choice.
Okay, because if we're creating karma with every thought, feeling, and action, that means we actually have the power to change the course of our lives by shifting our intentions.
Yes.
Yes.
It's about waking up to these patterns,
Yeah.
understanding the smell that we're emitting, and then choosing
Yeah.
to act with greater awareness.
Wow, okay. This is a lot to digest. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this whole karma thing.
We have.
Really.
And it only gets more interesting from here.
Yeah.
In the next part, we'll dive into how to break free from these unconscious cycles.
Okay.
And we'll explore this fascinating concept of collective karma.
Can't wait. This deep dive is already giving me a lot to think about.
Me too.
Okay, so we've established that we're all like creating karma all the time.
Constantly.
But you know that can feel kind of overwhelming, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. I'm writing the code for my life. But how do I actually change the program?
Yeah.
You know, like where do I even start?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's something we all struggle with. We see these patterns in our lives and we recognize, the smell of our vasana.
Yeah.
But then what? How do we actually shift those deep-seated tendencies? Especially when they feel so ingrained.
Right. Like it's easy to feel stuck, but thankfully Sadhguru doesn't just leave us hanging with this like existential dilemma.
No, he doesn't.
He actually offers some really practical guidance on how to break free.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talks about is this idea of disidentifying with desire. And I know that, at first glance, that sounds a bit extreme. Like, are we supposed to become like emotionless robots?
Yeah, right. That's not exactly a recipe for a fulfilling life.
Exactly. But from what I understand, it's not about eliminating desire altogether. It's more about like transforming it, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. It's about recognizing that so much of our suffering actually comes from this constant chase for fulfillment outside of ourselves.
It's that I want this and I need that mentality that just keeps us constantly longing for something more. And that makes me think of, how people often misinterpret Buddhist teachings about desire. It gets reduced to this idea that you have to suppress all desires, which, let's be honest, sounds pretty joyless.
It does. It's a very common misunderstanding. The real essence of the teachings is about understanding the nature of desire, not fearing or denying it. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from acquiring more things, more stuff.
Yeah, I go.
It comes from cultivating a sense of inner peace and contentment.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But how do we actually do that? Like, how do we shift from this place of lack to this place of fullness? It's easy to say, disidentify with desire, but how do we actually put that into practice?
Well, Sadhguru suggests a surprisingly simple practice. He encourages us to just create a little space between ourselves and the object of our desire. So let's say you're really craving that piece of chocolate cake.
Ooh, chocolate cake.
Right. Instead of immediately giving a pause for just a moment, observe the craving.
Yeah.
Feel the sensations in your body, but don't act on it right away.
Okay, so it's like hitting the pause button on that like autopilot reaction.
Yes.
Instead of just like mindlessly reaching for the cake.
Yes.
You're bringing awareness to the craving itself.
Exactly. You're creating that tiny gap of awareness. And as you practice this, you actually start to loosen the grip of that desire. You realize, wait a minute, I'm not my cravings.
Okay.
And then you gain the power to actually choose how you respond.
So it's like building that mental muscle, of conscious choice, or, flexing your volition, to use the yogic term.
Exactly. And you could apply this to any area of your life, whether it's longing for a particular relationship, a yearning for success, or even that desire to avoid something unpleasant.
Yeah.
The key is to create that space of awareness before you react.
It's about taking back the driver's seat, like we were talking about earlier.
Precisely. Now, this whole exploration of, individual karma naturally leads us to a bigger question. Is there such a thing as collective karma? And if so, how do our individual actions actually impact the world around us?
Right. It's like we're not just creating karma for ourselves. Our actions ripple outward, right? Affecting everyone and everything around us.
Absolutely. And Sadhguru explains that our actions don't just exist in a vacuum. They have far-reaching consequences. And he uses this term, kula vedana, which refers to this shared suffering, of a group, whether it's families, communities, or even entire nations.
Okay.
They carry this karmic weight together.
So we're not just inheriting physical traits from our ancestors. We're also inheriting like energetic patterns.
That's the idea.
Wow.
Both positive and negative.
Both. Okay. And that has some pretty profound implications. It makes you think about the responsibility we have to break those cycles of suffering.
Absolutely. Not just for ourselves, but for generations to come.
It's like we're all threads in this giant tapestry of life,
Yes.
Our individual actions are creating these patterns, and those patterns influence the entire fabric.
I love that. It's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
And Sadhguru actually brings up a very contemporary example to kind of illustrate this.
Okay.
Overpopulation.
Okay.
It's a stark reminder that our individual choices, even seemingly small ones, personal and insignificant, they all contribute to a collective reality with very real global consequences.
Yeah.
And it forces us to ask ourselves, what are my contributions to the collective karma of humanity?
Wow, that is a heavy question. It makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
It does. Now, speaking of karma and responsibility, we can't really avoid the age-old question about fate and destiny.
Right, like, do we actually have free will, or are we just puppets dancing to the strings of some predetermined plan?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then to make things even more complicated, there's this whole astrology angle.
Right, and people have been looking to the stars for guidance, for centuries, so surely there must be some truth to it.
There is. It's interesting because even Sadhguru acknowledges that astrology can offer some valuable insights.
Okay.
But he cautions against seeing it as like a fixed prediction.
Okay.
Instead, he views it as more of a tool for understanding our tendencies, our predispositions.
So instead of like blindly accepting what your horoscope says,
right,
you use that information to become more aware of like your potential challenges.
Yes.
And then you actively work to overcome them.
Exactly. It's like, okay, maybe I have this tendency towards impatience.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm doomed to be a hothead forever.
Right.
I can choose to cultivate patience and become more mindful of my reactions.
That's a good point.
It's about taking responsibility for your karmic inheritance and making conscious choices that align with your aspirations. He compares it to being a seafarer 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Back then, you were at the mercy of the winds, right?
Yeah.
If the winds blew east, that's where you'd end up, even if you wanted to go west.
Yeah, you'd be stuck.
But now, with, modern ships and navigational tools, we have the ability to actually chart our own course.
Right, even against those prevailing winds.
Exactly. And it's like saying, okay, I know the winds are blowing in a certain direction, but I'm choosing to steer my ship towards my desired destination. And this is what all those spiritual practices aim to do.
Okay.
They provide us with the tools and techniques to become conscious navigators of our own lives.
To become the captains of our own ships.
I love that.
Yes.
And he shares this incredible story, too, from Indian mythology about Markandeya, this young boy who was destined to die young.
Oh, wow.
But through his sheer will and, through grace,
Yeah.
he rewrites his fate. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just powerless victims of circumstance.
Yeah.
We have the potential to transcend those limitations, even the ones that seem preordained.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
It highlights that we're not bound by the past, We have the power to create our future.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another key point that Sadhguru emphasizes. Volition, this power of conscious choice.
Okay.
He's reminding us that we're not just reacting to life. We actually have the power to act consciously and deliberately.
So it's not just about understanding that smell, the vasana.
Right.
It's about actively choosing to create a different fragrance, one that's aligned with our, deepest aspirations.
Exactly. It's about becoming conscious creators of our own destiny.
Wow.
And that's where things get really exciting, because it means we have the power to change not only our own lives, but the world around us.
Okay, so much for karma being some passive system of punishment.
Right.
This is about empowerment.
Absolutely. And remember, it's a journey. It's about taking it one step at a time, cultivating that awareness and making conscious choices. And who knows, maybe we can even rewrite our collective destiny along the way.
This has been an incredible exploration so far. I'm really eager to hear what else Sadhguru has to say about all of this.
Well, in the next part, we'll delve into some even deeper aspects of this whole karma thing. We'll explore these illusions of individuality and how we can move beyond those limitations to tap into a more expansive sense of self.
I can't wait. This deep dive is already shifting my whole perspective on karma,
It is pretty amazing.
It's not just about what happened in the past. It's about what we choose to create in this very moment.
Absolutely.
All right, so here we are, the final part of our deep dive into karma. I feel like we've covered so much ground already,
Yeah, we have.
Like understanding how we're constantly creating karma and exploring the power of intention and even, touching on this whole idea of collective responsibility.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been.
And as we wrap up, I think it's important to kind of distill some key takeaways.
Okay, yeah.
Things that you can actually apply to your life moving forward. Because ultimately, knowledge is only as good as its application.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. It's one thing to understand these concepts intellectually, but how do we actually integrate them into our daily lives? Make them work for us?
Exactly. So first and foremost, and I really can't emphasize this enough, understanding karma is not about feeling trapped by the past.
Yeah.
It's about empowerment.
Because it means we're not just helpless victims of circumstance. We actually have the power to shape our own reality.
Precisely. Every thought, every emotion, every action, it's like a seed that we're planting.
Okay.
And those seeds, they're inevitably going to bear fruit.
But the good news is we get to choose what kind of seeds we plant.
That's where the real power lies.
That's the exciting part.
And that brings us to the second takeaway. Awareness is key.
Okay.
The more conscious we become of our patterns, our vasana, and the intentions behind our actions, the more skillfully we can navigate this karmic landscape.
Yeah.
Steer our lives in a direction that actually aligns with our deepest aspirations.
So instead of just reacting on autopilot, we're becoming more mindful of the choices that we're making in each moment.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that awareness. And as you become more conscious, you might start to notice those recurring cycles in your life. The same types of relationships, the same kinds of conflicts popping up again and again.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get discouraged, to think, ooh, here we go again. I'm never going to break free from this.
Right. It can be really frustrating.
It can. But remember, even recognizing the pattern, that in itself is a huge step forward.
You can't change what you don't acknowledge, right?
Exactly.
So even if those old patterns pop up, don't beat yourself up about it. Just notice them, acknowledge them, and then consciously choose a different response.
Yes. Transformation takes time. It takes patience. It takes practice.
Yeah.
It's a process of unlearning those old habits and consciously cultivating new ways of being.
That makes me think of gardening. You have to be really diligent about pulling out those weeds, to allow the plants that you want to actually flourish.
What a great analogy. And speaking of cultivating, this brings us to that third key takeaway. Intention is everything.
Okay.
It's not just about what you do. It's about why you do it.
So it's checking in with yourself before you act, asking yourself, okay, what's the motivation behind this?
Yeah.
Is it coming from a place of love, compassion, genuine service? Or is it fueled by fear, ego, or the need to control?
Yeah. It's about bringing consciousness to that underlying motivation.
Yeah.
And the more you align your actions with a pure intention, the more you create that positive karma, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you.
It's like that ripple effect we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Every action, no matter how small,
Yeah.
it sends out these ripples of energy that impact everything in its path.
And that brings us to the final point we want to emphasize. You are not alone on this journey.
Right.
We are all interconnected. Our individual actions, they all contribute to this collective karma of humanity.
So if we want to create a more harmonious world, it really starts with each of us taking responsibility
Yes.
for our own thoughts and emotions and actions.
Exactly. Now, as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm ready.
If karma is the software that shapes our lives, who is the programmer? Who wrote the original code?
Whoa. Okay, that is deep.
It is. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. I've never thought about it that way before. Like, it makes you realize there's a whole other dimension to this karma thing.
It invites us to really explore the source of creation within ourselves, to recognize that we are not just the product of our past, but also the architects of our future.
I like that. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into karma. We hope this exploration has been both insightful and inspiring.
Me too.
And remember, the journey of understanding karma, it's ongoing, you know?
It is.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and just keep making conscious choices that create a more beautiful and harmonious world. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, we encourage you to send over more topics that spark your curiosity. We love hearing from you.
You do.
Until next time, keep diving.